The turkey had barely been sliced when Jake decided to open his mouth and ruin the entire evening. "Let's face it, Scarlett," he said, loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. "I'm their real child. You're just here." Mom and Dad laughed like it was some harmless joke, then turned to me and said I was being too sensitive, like always. But I wasn't being sensitive this time. In my purse sat a DNA test that would blow their perfect little family story to pieces. My name is Scarlett. I'm 28 years old. And that moment at the table wasn't just another cruel jab from my brother. It was proof. Proof of what I'd suspected my whole life. For 2 months, I'd been carrying that envelope around like it weighed 100 pounds, wondering if I'd ever have the courage to pull it out. Wondering if the truth was worth the kind of explosion it would cause. The results explained everything. The dismissals, the comparisons, the way every success of mine was ignored while every mediocre thing Jake did was celebrated. The cruelty wasn't random. It was rooted in a lie they'd been keeping for nearly 3 decades. And tonight, at this very table, I was going to stop being their family secret. That test wasn't just paper, it was proof. And I was done being ignored. I should have seen it sooner. I was 7 when I first understood something was wrong. Christmas morning, Jake tore open a massive box to find the newest gaming system inside, screaming with joy so loud the neighbors probably heard. My turn came next. I unwrapped a cheap craft kit from the dollar store, the kind with dried up markers and paper so thin it tore when you touched it. Mom saw my face and said, "Well, honey, we spend more on Jake because he actually uses his gifts. You just leave things lying around." Dad didn't even look up from his coffee, just nodded like that was perfectly reasonable. 3 years later, when I was 10, I won first place in the school talent show for my art. I ran all the way home, ribbon in hand, bursting into the kitchen to show them. "Look, I won first place," I said, practically breathless with excitement. Dad glanced at it for a split second. "That's nice," he muttered. "Did you hear Jake made the soccer team? We're so proud of him." They spent the entire dinner talking about Jake's athletic future, while I sat in silence and put my ribbon in a drawer where no one would ever see it. By the time I was 16, I'd stopped expecting anything. Still, some small part of me hoped maybe this time it would be different, maybe this achievement would matter. I was accepted into a prestigious art program with a partial scholarship. I announced it at dinner, my heart racing. Mom gave me this tight, brittle smile. "Art school, Scarlett? That's not a real career. When are you going to be practical like your brother?" That same week, Jake brought home a report card full of C's, and they took him out to celebrate anyway. I ate dinner alone in my room. The pattern never broke. Every milestone I reached was brushed aside. Every failure of his was excused. When I was 23, I had my first gallery showing. 3 of my pieces were selected for display. I invited the whole family. They promised to come. The morning of the show, Mom texted me, "Sorry, sweetie. Jake has a company dinner. We need to support his real career. You understand?" That night, I sold 3 pieces, my first real sales as an artist. They never even asked how it went. A week later, they flew to another state for one of Jake's casual work parties. And then I started noticing other things. The way they'd go silent when I walked into the room. The way they introduced Jake as our son, but referred to me as just Scarlett. The fact that I didn't look like either of them, or like Jake. 6 months ago, after yet another dismissal, Mom's words echoed in my head. "Why can't you be more like Jake? He's everything we wanted in a child. Not everything we got. Everything we wanted." That phrasing stayed with me. So I ordered a DNA test. And now, sitting at this Thanksgiving table listening to Jake's smug little comment about being their real child, I finally understood. He knew. They all knew. I had taken the test 3 months ago. The results came back 2 months later. I was sitting alone in my apartment when I opened the email, my hands shaking so hard I could barely click. The first test confirmed what I'd always suspected. Jake was the biological child of both my parents. The second test made my stomach drop. I shared DNA with my father, but not with my mother. I sat there staring at the screen for an hour before I moved. Then I took a sample from Mom's hairbrush and sent it in for a third test just to be sure. 2 weeks later, the confirmation came. She was not my biological mother. Everything suddenly snapped into focus. The favoritism, the coldness, the constant comparisons. She had been raising her husband's child from another woman. I couldn't just leave it at that. I needed the whole story. So I hired a private investigator. What he found broke something inside me. 29 years ago, my father had an affair. The woman's name was Catherine Mills. She died giving birth to me. My father brought me home as a newborn and somehow convinced his wife to raise me. The investigator found hospital records, a birth certificate with Catherine's name instead of the woman I'd called Mom my entire life. He even found a photo of Catherine. She looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same smile, same everything. My mother had agreed to raise me, but she had never forgiven my father and she had never accepted me. I was a living reminder of his betrayal. 2 years after I was born, Jake came along. Her real child, the one she actually wanted. I spent weeks processing this alone, grieving for a biological mother I never knew, furious at my father for the lie, understanding but not forgiving my mother for her resentment. All of it led to this moment at the Thanksgiving table. The DNA results heavy in my purse, Jake smirking across from me, my parents pretending everything was normal. Tonight was the night everything changed. My mother's indifference was something I'd grown used to over the years, but Jake's cruelty that night, using what he knew to cut me down, left me furious. In my bag sat a folder I'd been keeping for months. DNA results, my birth certificate, hospital papers, the pathology report, and even a photo of Catherine. I never meant to bring it to Thanksgiving. It was only there as a safety net. But after Jake made that real child comment, I knew the safety net had become a weapon of truth. They all knew. They'd all been using this secret as a silent blade against me my entire life. I excused myself from the table and locked myself in the bathroom. My hand shook as I dialed Aunt Rachel, my father's sister. She answered on the second ring. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? You sound upset." I didn't ease into it. "Did you know I'm not Mom's biological daughter?" The pause on the other end stretched long enough for my stomach to sink. Then came the sound of her crying. "Oh, honey, yes. I've known since you were born. I begged your father to tell you." My chest tightened. "How long have you known?" 28 years, she whispered. "I've been fighting them about it the entire time." She told me everything, the arguments with my parents, the way my mother slowly cut her off for pushing the truth. "And Jake?" I asked. "He found out 2 years ago. Your father told him. He's been using it to keep his position as the favorite." I could hear voices in the background on her end. That same comment Jake made at dinner echoed in my mind. Aunt Rachel spoke again. "I'm putting you on speaker. Your grandmother and cousins are here. We're all behind you." My throat closed up. "You're all there. We've been waiting for this moment, sweetheart. Your grandmother's been desperate to talk to you for years. Your mother cut us off when we kept demanding they tell you the truth." I took a steadying breath. "I'm going back out there. I'm telling them everything. We'll be right here if you need us. Just call." I texted my grandmother. "Can you video call in 5 minutes? I need witnesses." Her reply came back instantly, already ready. When I returned to the dining room, folder in hand, the rest of them were still laughing about Jake's remark, enjoying themselves at my expense. Mom looked up. "Feeling better, Scarlett? You're always so sensitive." I set the folder down. "Actually, I think it's time we talked about what's really happening in this family." The room fell silent. My hands trembled, but my voice stayed calm. "Jake said he's your real child." I wanted to know what he meant. So, 3 months ago, I took a DNA test. I slid the results across to my father. Mom's face turned white. Dad stared at the paper as though it might explode. Jake's smirk faded. "Turns out Jake was right," I said. "Mom, you're not my biological mother." One by one, I laid out the documents. The DNA test showing I matched my father, but not my mother, the birth certificate with Catherine Mills listed, the hospital records from 28 years ago. Finally, I placed the photo of Catherine on the table. The resemblance was undeniable. My biological mother was Catherine Mills. She died giving birth to me. Dad had an affair, brought me home, and convinced you to raise me. I turned to Jake. "So yes, Jake, you're their real child. Both of theirs. I'm the daughter of Dad's mistress, the living reminder of his betrayal. My phone rang. Grandmother's video call. I answered and set the phone on the table so everyone could see. Grandmother's voice cut through the stillness like a blade. I've watched you all torment this girl for 28 years. I'm done being silent. She looked directly at my mother. She was an innocent baby. Your anger at your husband should never have been taken out on her. Her expression softened as she looked at me. I've missed 15 years of my granddaughter's life because you cut us off when we demanded the truth. Sweetheart, we never stopped loving you. We've been waiting to be part of your life again. My uncle, my mother's own brother, stared at her from across the table. Is this true? You've been punishing a child for something that wasn't her fault. My mother shot to her feet, nearly toppling her chair. Her voice trembled with fury. You had no right to dig into this. This is private family business. Do you know what it was like raising another woman's child, being reminded every day of what he did? Dad reached for her arm. Honey, please. We should have told her. This is my fault. Then he turned to me. Did you have to do this here, at Thanksgiving? You're ruining everything. Jake piped up. Dad told me when I turned 25. Said it was a man-to-man conversation. He looked straight at me. He said I was the real heir, the real son, that I didn't have to treat you like a real sister. The betrayal hit me again, sharper than before. But this time I wasn't trembling. I stood. I ruined Thanksgiving. You ruined 28 years of my life. Every birthday you ignored, every achievement you dismissed, every time you chose Jake over me. Now I know why. I gathered the folder. But here's what you don't understand. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this to free myself. Grandmother's voice came through the speaker. Scarlett, pack your things. You're spending the holidays with us from now on with your real family, the ones who actually love you. She looked at my parents through the screen. And you two need to take a hard look at yourselves. You turned cruelty into a family tradition. Aunt Rachel leaned into view. We're not letting you isolate her anymore. Those days are over. My uncle rose from his seat. I'm going with Scarlett. I can't be part of this. His wife and teenage daughter stood too. Jake and my parents sat frozen as we walked out. I drove straight to Aunt Rachel's house. That's where real Thanksgiving happened. Warmth, acceptance, and love. They told me stories about Catherine, my biological mother I'd never met. Grandmother showed me photos. You have her smile, she said, her artistic talent, her kind heart. Over the next few days, messages poured in, texts from my uncle and his family. We had no idea. We're here for you always. Distant relatives from my father's side reached out. Your grandmother told us. We want to know you. Even old family friends wrote. We always wondered why they treated you differently. We started planning Christmas together. Aunt Rachel, grandmother, my cousins. Grandmother smiled at me. This is your family now, the people who choose you, not just biology. My father left a voicemail, crying, apologizing. I deleted it without listening. I wasn't ready for that conversation. Maybe I never would be. But for the first time in my life, I felt peace. I'd stopped chasing approval from people who could never give it. I had family who loved me, just not the ones I grew up with. The truth hadn't destroyed me. It had set me free.